Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Minecraft Disney Q&A. This is the series in which you guys throw me all manner of questions regarding Disney, the parks, the animations, the movies, and I try to give you answers to the best of my ability, even if sometimes I don't know. We're here on MC Magic, the recreation of Walt Disney World. Specifically, we're here in the American Adventure in Epcot. I'm going to do something a little different today. Normally, I'm like bouncing around and I warp here and warp there between questions, but what I'm going to do today is I'm going to walk all the way from the American Adventure to all the way to the back of the Magic Kingdom without warping at all. We're going to ride the monorails and all that good stuff, and I've got some great questions to bring up and answer today. So without further ado, let's just get started. Let's go left. We'll go back the left way, and I also let people on the server know that I'm recording, so I'm sure they're going to be out looking for me, and maybe we'll get a little train of people following. Anyway, first question this week comes from OKC Max, who asks, I wanted to ask you about how Disney Channel has changed over the year, considering their new logo and revamp. Also, there's a new block every Wednesday night on Disney Channel that has old shows sort of like Disney Vault in the way. Keep up the awesome videos as always. Well, thank you. So yeah, this is actually a really well-timed question because I was actually on Reddit the other night, and I don't know what the actor's name was, but he was the actor who played Lizzie McGuire's brother on the Lizzie McGuire show. He was doing an AMA, which is like a Q&A for people who are not Reddit, frequenters, and people were asking him about sort of, how the Disney Channel has changed over the years. And he provided insight that was very interesting and new to me. And he said that a lot of the older Disney Channel shows were one-camera shows. And what a one-camera show is when you film the show with one camera. If you think of something like Lizzie McGuire, for instance, that was a one-camera show. They went to a set, and they had the camera crew, and they set everything up, and they filmed it, and they edited it all together. And then you have something called three-camera shows. And what a three-camera show is when you usually have people on a sound stage acting with multiple cameras recording at once that you'd cut between, and you'd have a live audience there most of the time who would have, a laugh track. And it's sort of, you think of something like 2.5 Men or, those sort of sitcoms, Big Bang Theory. That's a three-camera show. And he mentioned that over the years, Disney really started shifting from doing one-camera shows to three-camera shows. And the reason for it, or at least the reason he hypothesized, was because it gave the executives a lot more control over the content of the show. Because at the end of the day, if I have a one-camera show, let's say I'm Mr. Director-Producer, I could go off to a set and film the show and come back, and if the producers don't like it, well, there's not much they can do. They can't really edit around it too much, and what's filmed was filmed. They'd have to otherwise pay to have us go back and reshoot a whole new thing, which usually is not something they want to do. But on a three-camera set, the producers can show up because it's on the studio, and they can see the rehearsals before, they perform in front of a live audience, and they could go, well, we don't like this in the script, change this and change that, and it just, at the end of the day, allows the company more control over what the messaging is and what gets recorded. And you can argue back and forth, and there's arguments for both as to whether this is a good or a bad thing. But it seems like that's sort of a path that the Disney Channel moved into. Now, the Lizzie McGuire years, which is now what I'm going to term that era of the Disney Channel, was like the Twilight years for me of the Disney Channel. Not like Twilight the book series, by the way. Twilight as in, it was just sort of like when I stopped naturally watching the Disney Channel. At that point, I think I was a teenager, and so I wasn't really interested in a lot of the Disney Channel programming. So the stuff beyond that, Lizzie McGuire era, I never really saw. And what I did see at that point was mostly because I have a younger sister who at that age was watching it, because she enjoyed those shows, and so I would just see it on in the background, and I would just sort of absorb it that way. So, I don't have a personal stake in how it's changed. Obviously, I'm okay with change in a general sense. We can't imagine, a lot of the times we let nostalgia get in the way of objectively or trying to objectively judge something like that. I am guilty of it as much as everyone else, but I try to, whenever I can, step back and go, you know what? Maybe I'm not a fan of, these new like Sweet Life, Zach and Cody. I'm sure a lot of you younger viewers watched it or remember it and grew up with it, but it is totally outside of my wheelhouse. So that was a show that I'd look at and go, ooh, people like this? And I'm sure there were people who are older than me who looked at the shows that I was watching and going, ew, people like that? Like, it's just a generational thing. So I'm all okay with changes. But I brought it up because I thought that was an interesting way to look at it, which is sort of that, company control element. Our next question comes from B. Fish Alex Imagineering, who asks, do you think that Eisner being more like Roy, the business type, and less like Walt, the creative type, actually benefited the Imagineers because he let them create original attractions, which are not being created as often today, and ideas instead of trying to lead them in a specific direction? Thanks and have a magical day. Now, this is interesting because from all the books I've read, I actually wouldn't pin Eisner as being more like Roy. I would actually pin him as being more like Walt, which sounds crazy because you think of Michael Eisner, he's always like the guy in the suit who's, the business guy. But, I always saw that Frank Wells was more like Roy. He was into the operationals element of the Disney company. He made plans happen. Whereas Eisner, while he wasn't, he wasn't creative to the point where he was directing and writing things, he was way more involved in the creative aspect of a lot of these projects than your typical CEO or any executive would be. He got his start working, I believe it was Paramount Pictures, as a producer, and he has a background in, I want to say drama, like he was he did like classical theater studies. Boy, it's been a while since I've read his biography. But he has a creative background, and he became an executive after working, I think he started at ABC and then went to Paramount and then went to Disney and then bought ABC back. Or was it CBS? I don't really remember which station it was. But he went from TV to film to Disney. And so he's got a creative background, and I think that makes him more like Walt than any other sort of executive at the time. And so I do think that benefited the Walt Disney Company, though. I think his respect for the creative elements, not just looking at it as a number on a sheet saying, well, what's our budget, what's our income, but respecting that, you can have a quality piece of creative work is what allowed him to really allow the Imagineers to go crazy. In fact, I believe it was Disney Wars, the really good book about his sort of reign at Disney, they talk about how he sort of gave Imagineering a bloated budget because he was so excited and he got so into the concept of theme park design and, running these parks that they were like his golden child. He gave them the money they needed to do anything, to the point where at some point, Imagineering wasn't a very profitable venture. They were spending more money than they were eventually earning. So I would definitely pin him more as Walt than Roy, but I do think that was good for the company. Great question. Next up, we have Jack Fleischer. Fleischer? Uh-oh, chunks are loading slowly. Let's see. Last time I was in Disney World, Anna and Elsa were a wait time of 250 minutes plus. Do you think Disney should put more Anna and Elsas in the park, or would it ruin the magic of meeting them? Good question. Anna and Elsa wait times are ridiculous. People are running to Anna and Elsa to the point where they actually changed the opening ceremony of the Magic Kingdom to stop adults from sprinting to go to the meet and greet with Anna and Elsa. Now they have cast members slowly walk people down Main Street so that nobody gets hurt. It's ridiculous. Should they add more? I'm of the opinion of yes, they should, but not within the same park. Disney sticks to the strict rule where that, you should never ever see the same character twice at the same time, because it breaks that illusion, right? They want you to think that's Mickey Mouse, so it makes no sense if Mickey Mouse is there and then you look across the way and there's another Mickey Mouse. But I can see, put them in Norway, put them in the Magic Kingdom, put one in the, animation area of Hollywood Studios. Give multiple opportunities, but keep them far apart so it doesn't break the illusion that they're Anna and Elsa. Of course, Disney, I think, has probably, they have definitely talked about it, internally at least. But I wouldn't be surprised if partly they're leaving it this way, because by keeping the demand high that there are these long wait lines, it creates this illusion of this is a thing you have to do. Look, everybody's doing it. It's not uncommon for a company to do that at all, to sort of artificially restrict supply to create demand, essentially. So personally, I'd like to see more of them. Maybe we will. I think also part of it is to put in the money and the time and put the plans to make them happen takes time, and I'm sure partially they're wondering like when the Frozen fad is gonna like wash over and calm down, and they might not need more. In a couple of weeks, maybe people will just stop being as crazy about Frozen. We don't know. But interesting question. Our next question comes from Christian Milkos, who, hold on, let's hop on the monorail. We're gonna head to the Ticket and Transportation Center. If the monorail is, nope, maybe my plan is not gonna work. Up, it's a little laggy. Okay. Up, there it is. No, this is gonna take forever. I don't know. It seems like the server's having some lag issues right now, so maybe walking not the best idea. So let's go ahead and I guess just warp to the MK. Okay, so our next question comes from Christian, who asks, I'm going to Disney for the first time at the end of June, but I have some food allergies. How accommodating is Disney to people with food allergies, and what restaurants would you recommend someone with food allergy eats at? So great news, Christian. Disney is super accommodating to people with food allergies. All you need to do is just mention it. You can mention it like when you're checking in at the hotel, and you can probably get a lot of good custom recommendations. But if you mention it at the restaurants too, most, if not all of them, have alternative items on the menu for people with food allergies, I guess, depending on what you're allergic to. I don't have any personal recommendations because I've never actually thought in terms of, food allergies or not being able to eat something, but that's just because I've never really gone with anybody who had those restrictions. But everything I've learned from the people over at like WDW Radio, where this is actually a pretty common question, they're very, very accommodating. So you're in luck. And from everything I've heard, Disney's probably one of the most accommodating like vacation spots when it comes to things like food allergies. So I guess it would really depend on what you're allergic to. If you're allergic to seafood, I would say probably don't go to the Living Seas to eat. But I would imagine most, if not all, places have some sort of option. This is actually something I'm probably gonna have to think of soon, because I would love to go to Disney and bring Molly with me, but she doesn't eat gluten. So that'll be interesting to see what gluten options are out there. I've always just, Disney World has been a food smorgasbord for me. I have always I have had no restrictions when it comes to it, which, I like to think I took full advantage of every time I go down. Our next question comes from Lego King 58, who asks, I've heard from Attractions Magazine. Oh, this is a double. I'm going to answer two questions at once. I've heard from Attractions Magazine that the cast of the American Idol experience in Hollywood studios was told that the show is closing in 6 months. What are your thoughts about this? And if you were in charge, what attraction show would you put in its place? Now, Dalton Beecher also asks, what are your thoughts on Light Motors Action? Should it go, stay, be refurbished, and why? So the night before me recording this, I actually read a rumor that seems to be a pretty strong rumor that, one, like you mentioned, Lego King, American Idol's closing. The rumor says that the Indiana Jones Stunt Spectacular will be closing at the end of the year. Again, I don't think this has not officially been confirmed by Disney. And then the rumor went on to basically hint that that whole Echo Lake area is going to be converted into more or less Star Wars land. What are my thoughts on that? I'm okay with that. I like the Indiana Jones Stunt Spectacular. I'll miss it. I can't say the same about American Idol. And I like that area of the park, and I'll miss it if it changes, but I'm all about change and new things. And, Disney definitely needs to act on the fact that they now own this massive IP, which is Star Wars. And, Star Wars Land was something that was not a stretch for quite a while, and I am a huge fan of Star Wars, so I certainly will not it's not like Avatar Land, where I'm not a big Avatar fan, so I'm a little on the fence about it. Here, I love Star Wars, so yeah, I'm absolutely down for it. The real question is how they're going to do it. Hopefully, it's more of a staggered refurbishment, and it's not like they just close off a whole chunk of the park until they do all of it at once. It'll probably be replacing one attraction, then the other, then so on and so forth, so that, they're not removing too much from your experience. But I would like to see it. I mean, it's called Echo Lake. I'm pretty sure it's called Echo Lake because of Echo Base, the Empire Strikes Back base. So it's an interesting place to do it. Now, what's interesting is Lights, Motor, Actions is not there. It's a little bit disconnected. It's, kind of off a bit because it's at the end of the New York Facade Street, which is what I call it. So it's not like it would be totally connected, although I guess you could if you did that area too, but now you're changing a whole lot of the park. But yeah, I think from a operational standpoint, probably makes sense to change it. I remember hearing that they have to change the tires like every X amount of shows because they just burn out from all of the stunts. I thought it was a cool show, and considering, films have stunts in them and it's a park about films, it makes sense, right? So I'm not, opposed to the show as an idea, but I'm all for change. Bella Smith has a question, and that is, there are many rumors of a new Disney movie about a princess named Moana. If you look her up, you probably find pictures of her. Do you believe this rumor? Do you think it's too soon to make a new princess since Anna and Elsa are new and still very popular? So I checked, and this is technically still a rumor. At first I thought it wasn't because there's been so many reportings about this movie. But technically, I don't think Disney has officially announced anything regarding this movie. But it seems like there are enough sources, and they're heavy enough sources, that it's more or less an accepted thing that they're working on this movie, which is the idea of it's the next Disney movie, and it's about a Polynesian princess. Do I think it's too soon? No. I think although those rumors are saying that this is a movie slated for release in 2018, which is 4 years from now, these movies take a lot of time to make. So I think 4 years from now, it'll be about time for a new princess movie, and it'll hopefully be really good, and I'm looking forward to it. Aaron Beatty asks, why don't other parks have utilities? Thanks and have a great week. Well, they all have utilities. I think what you mean is utilidors, which are the corridors underneath the Magic Kingdom. The utilities are just, electric and water, and all those parks have that. Why don't they have it? They don't really need it. The way the Disney World was sort of built, it was sort of... it's this hub and spoke pattern, right? Where you have the hub and then you have the outdoors. And originally, they weren't all connected. The original plan was you would go to Tomorrowland and then you'd go back to the hub to go to Frontierland and go back to the hub. And eventually they were connected so you could just walk around like I've been doing here. And because of that, you couldn't get around easily without being, without being seen. And that's sort of what, Walt didn't really like. So they built this underground utilidors. Now you look at Epcot, though. Epcot's a totally different design. Everything's on the edges, right? So you can put all the utilities behind those attractions, and then, cast members could just walk around the outside edge, and they'll be unseen. So you just don't need it. And I think with certain parks, like the Animal Kingdom, I think, you could get away. It's not as stark as a contrast as, like, say, a Cowboy in Tomorrowland, to have people from different lands crossing over. I think really most of the reason you don't see it is because of the cost. Because of Florida's really shallow waterbed, the utilidors weren't dug underground. They were built on the first level, and then the park was built over it, and that was an expensive process. And to do that for these other parks when you necessarily don't have to is kind of a waste of money. So I think that's why you haven't seen them. And then we've got another question from Jeremiah Rivera, who asks, okay, this one's interesting. The Disney Kingdom's Marvel comic book series has recently added a new collection about Figment. You may know that their previous set was Seekers of the World, which is based on the Haunted Mansion concept that got canned. You've also mentioned the new Haunted Mansion film that Guillermo del Toro is working on, and the inclusion of the Hatbox Ghost. What are your thoughts about Disney deciding to feature and focus on old classic theme park characters in their other forms of media? Do you think they should feature more like this? I personally like the idea of characters like Figment being brought back into the spotlight because not many newer and younger Disney fans know much about them. Yeah, I was actually completely in the dark about this Disney Kingdom series. I'm going to look it up after we're done recording because it sounds really interesting. But in general, yeah, I'm all for that. I'm not against the idea of cross-promotion, the idea of, using an attraction to promote a ride or to promote a movie or vice versa. My only gripe ever came up with that Iger sort of focused in one direction only, which is that we've got this new movie, we've got this new TV show, this new property, let's make a ride about it. I would love to see the opposite happen more often. You know, we saw it with the Pirates of the Caribbean. There's the Pirates of the Caribbean. There's the ride. Now we're making it a movie. Great. Haunted Mansion. Great. This comic book series. Love it. I think we should see more of that. Absolutely. And I think, you know, I would be in favor of more original ideas where it's like, we're going to make an original series. We're going to promote this, but we're going to start with an attraction. Use the attraction to kick it off, and then do a show or a movie or something else. So I would definitely like to see more of that. And then finally, I have a lightning round, 3 questions. I thought they'd be pretty quick to answer. But before I get into that, let me just say, if you have a question you want me to answer, feel free to leave it in the comments. You guys are so great with the questions. I'll either try to answer them in the comments if I've answered them before, or I will... Now what I'm doing, since so many of you are leaving so many great questions, is I have a folder. So, like, there were way more than 10 questions this week that I just couldn't get to all of them. So I've saved them, and I will get to them in future episodes. So feel free to leave a question if you want. I'm at Rob Plays on Twitter. I am on the social network, so I could give you a quick answer to something there if you want. I do other Minecraft stuff. I do non-Minecraft stuff, which is on Rob Plays Those Games. We've got like new shirts in the shirt store, so the channel is like really alive and kicking this summer, and I'm excited for that. But anyway, let's get to the lightning round. First up, we have Tanya Hyman, who asks, "Hey Rob, what is your favorite country at World Showcase, and what country do you think they should add?" My favorite's Italy because of the food and the theming, and I would love to see a country not based on one country, but based on the oceanic regions like New Zealand and Australia. W Chaser 5 asks, if you had to build one ride in Disney World on the MC Magic server, which do you think you would enjoy building the most? Horizons. And I actually tried that on like the old creative server. I built the outside 1-to-1, and it was a lot of fun. I just wasn't very good at the inside part. But so Horizons, a classic ride. And then finally, Secret Sauce asks, I'm getting ready to run my first Disney race in October. Have you ever ran a Disney race? My second question is, do you collect Vinylmations, and if so, what's your favorite? I don't collect Vinylmations, but I do own one, and it's the New York one, where it's a black Vinylmation with all these different styled fonts for the different neighborhoods in New York City that I saw on sale and picked it up, and it is in my room. It's still in the box, and I, as a New Yorker and as a Disney fan, I really enjoy it. And then the first part, I've never run a Disney race. I have run races. 5K and 10K, and great for you, anybody who does any sort of racing, even if it's not like an actual organized race, but just running, it's a great way to stay in shape. My best advice would be Florida is hotter than usual, so you know, whatever training you're doing for running, just keep that in mind. Make sure you're super hydrated and well rested and prepared for that race, because I'm sure the heat of it will definitely play an extra bit. I would love to do a Disney race at one point or another. I actually was looking for running paths during my last trip. Anyway, so we kind of did it. We went from Epcot to MK, answered a lot of questions. I want to thank you all for watching. I hope you all have a fantastic week. Whatever you're doing, make the most of it, because it makes it so much better. And I hope to see you all here next time for the next episode of the Minecraft Disney Q&A. Bye, everybody.